can you still be modest, but be a bodybuilder? I think first we have to define what modesty is truly and understand that there's a difference between modesty and humility. So firstly, modesty, in my opinion, is when you deny yourself the pleasure of, I want to say showing off in like a fancier way, but like showing off or like exuberance. You deny yourself that, and that's modesty. So you don't show off in any way. But as a bodybuilder, there's a little bit of a difference. Because as a bodybuilder, your job is to, demonstrate your physique. And many people would say that bodybuilding in and of itself is showing off. However, as you view bodybuilding as like different things, as like an art or like a just discipline or those sorts of things, there is no kind of bounds to it. You can keep going, nobody's gonna be like, oh, bodybuilding is this, bodybuilding is that. There is no in between there. Bodybuilding is, but can you say that it is showing off to the man who defines it as art? I don't know. I think one thing that I do know is that you can separate your professional and personal life. And if your personal position is that you are modest outside of bodybuilding, but bodybuilding is your profession, then you're not showing off, you're just going to work and doing your work because you have a good, thing going. I think that we can tweak our definition of modesty a little bit. Because if you're just going to work and doing your job, but your job is to, flex your muscles on stage, are you still showing off? I think not. I don't think so. Because if you were to actually be showing off, then there would be a sense of pride and almost arrogance to your showing off. But if you're just performing your bodybuilding and you don't feel as though you're showing off, you are just doing your job. You're clocking in, you're showing something that you have made. But then this gets into the line of humility and modesty, where modesty is not showing off, but humility is the absence of pride, but the regulation of pride. So would you be able to say that somebody that gets on stage is able to be modest? There are certain, you can definitely be humble and be a bodybuilder, but is being naked inherently showing off? I suppose if you have I think because it's so culturally if you display your talent, you are showing off. But is that really true if you just have worked at something for a long time? It's so natural. There are times where I do something and lots of people don't do that, or I'm taller than some people, and sometimes I'll just be hitting stuff above my head. I'm not trying to show off or anything. Wow. modesty, I think, yes, you can be modest as a bodybuilder if you're using the true definition of modesty. But as like the applicable, I'm not showing off model, no, you can't, because then it's like, then you're inherently showing off even if you don't get a sense of pride. Like, maybe that's the actual definition. Like, keep your skills to yourself. They're nobody else's but yours. Like, maybe that's different than modesty, though. Maybe that's being more discreet. Like, I don't know. If you were to say that, let's say, I don't know, if you're a surfer and you just love surfing, and you're just on a crowded beach and you're like doing your moves and stuff, what are you gonna say to them? Like, are you modest now because you're surfing in front of all these amateurs? If you're purposefully like flexing on them, being like, whoa. But if you're just here to have a good time, then like, yeah. I think any situation where you say that I'm better than somebody else, that's showing off. That's immodesty. That's also tied with modesty, humility. That's not being humble. If you think that you are better than somebody, you may be more skilled at something or know somebody that somebody doesn't know, but that does not necessarily make you better than somebody else. If that makes sense. Next, I guess. I think one thing about think one thing that, like, this whole, like, be yourself thing is, like, weird. And there's a difference between authenticity and being yourself. Being yourself is interesting because you can change who you are. Like, not easily, but without much, like, great strain. Like, you can change your nature. Like, your political stance or how you feel about certain things. And so I think being authentic is more about representing what you create rather than representing what you take in. There's a big misunderstanding in society that we are what we consume. It's the exact opposite. We are what we produce. Humans are creatures of production and consumption to a large extent, but our identities are what we produce because that's what everybody else gets. Whether it's like, whether you do comedy or, I don't know, a carpenter, that like table that you just built or the joke you just told, those are things that other people understand you as. That is your identity. Because, I don't know, let's say you know 1,000 people. Out of the 1,001 different versions of you in somebody's mind, only one is your own. And the other 1,000 are everybody else's view of you. And the only way people understand their view of you is through what you produce. So like your art or how you speak, which is influenced how you consume. The consumption is the influencing factor, and the production is the output, which is the actual influence. So like being yourself, yes, to an extent, is what you consume. But to a larger extent, and to like the majority extent, it's what you produce. I would say they're both at least equal importance. Like monitoring how much you produce or what you produce, and then how much and what you consume. Because if you're like, oh, this is so important. What you watch actually matters. It matters. And I think people don't think this or don't say it, but how you feel about certain things changes based on art. Like, people have like died for pieces of art. Like, think about football, or football as in like soccer. Think about soccer. People die over soccer. Like, there have been literal wars over this game, over this art. And that is like strictly because people's identities are so caught up in what they love and in their consumption, that if their consumption goes haywire, then their internal piece of what they produce and what they are as a human being is too fulfilled by just one thing, that they become this like abominable soccer fan because they don't understand how to control their feelings. And honestly, rightly so. If your entire identity is like shifted by one soccer match, then it would be kind of reasonable for you to kill someone. And this sounds weird, but it doesn't make it makes psychological sense. Like, if your entire identity is shattered by one game, or like sense of pride and ego. There's a difference between pride and ego. Pride is like having value in oneself. Ego is like the affluence of that. How much you think of yourself. Ego is how much you think of yourself. Pride is like how great it is, or like, yeah. You can have pride and be humble. That's another conversation. Anyway, if your entire pride is shattered by one hockey game or whatever, yeah, of course you would be mad. Like, that's you. That's why people get so invested in these things, because their identity is caught up in the game. So on that front, no, like you cannot consume so much as to just become something else and like expect your body not to change. Your sense of pride and feelings are seriously dependent on what you consume at a certain point of consumption, which is why it's so unhealthy to why like consuming so much on social media is unhealthy, or like spending too much time watching movies is unhealthy. It's because if you do these things, then your emotional state, your stability, your feelings of like self are all regulated by these things you have absolutely no control over, except how much and what you consume. But if you choose to watch Love Island, and this happens so often, and it's almost normal now, to be upset at somebody losing on Love Island. Like, no, it's not right to have that much investment in a series. In my opinion, I don't think that you should feel that you should gain too many negative emotions from that sort of story. I'm not saying that you can't cry at whatever that dog movie is, or all of them are blanking. Dolphin Tale. You can cry at Dolphin Tale or Marley and Me, and that's cool. Like that's acceptable and normal because you're viewing like a story. But if you're gonna spend the time to like, if you're gonna get angry over something or extremely depressed, what's right is to know that you will do those things and to be aware enough to stop. Because it's not acceptable for somebody to be depressed over their favorite character losing in Love Island or whatever. It's not good. It will lead you down a path of destruction. It's not healthy. It's not good. I would say it's not advisable at all. Yeah. Can we get one like on the video? If you watched this far, bro, just like the video.